Pranam Partho.
Pranam.
Welcome to this new podcast on Mahavakyas of Gita.
Mahavakyas of the Gita.
Yeah. So as we know, Bhagavad Gita is one of the most significant scriptures in Indian religion and Indian history. Whilst it's already, it's a wisdom shared by Sri Krishna and given to Arjuna on the battlefield. And it has it was fully in Sanskrit, and it has a lot of very in-depth pearls of wisdom. But there are certain Mahavakyas, as we call them, the key statements which actually tie the whole series of wisdom that has been passed. Could we maybe start with that? Maybe one of the first Mahavakyas that you consider as Mahavakyas, and mention it in Sanskrit and then its meaning layer by layer, because there are lots of layers. It's not just in one sentence one can understand these Mahavakyas.
The Mahavakyas of the Gita is something that I had used for one of my books that I was writing but couldn't complete. It's called Mahavakyas of the Gita.
Wow.
Where I took up some of the most significant teachings of the Gita. Some of the most, the whole work is very profound, very significant, but some of the pronouncements of the statements I considered more potent, profounder in its immediate and longer term impact, and statements or teachings that gave a sharper, a clearer definition to the entire body of the Gita's teachings. Those are the ones I picked up as the Mahavakyas. It's almost like if someone wanted a bird's eye view of the Bhagavad Gita, what she or he would see would be a few very bright stars on the firmament. Almost like pole stars on the firmament, which would lead you from one level of understanding the Gita to another level of understanding the Gita. So these would be what I call the Mahavakyas. Also, each Mahavakya would logically lead to not only the next Mahavakya, but to the entire yoga of the Gita. For someone who would want to practice the Gita, live the Gita, what are the threads that he or she would pick up? What are the threads that would lead the sadhak of the yoga of the Gita, that would lead the practitioner of the Gita to its depths? So for that's what I meant by
Sure.
Mahavakyas.
Sure. I just want to clarify two things possibly for our audience and myself. One is that all these Mahavakyas are equally relevant in the modern world of today, as the one we are living. It wasn't just relevant long time ago when the world looked very different, when
So here's the thing about the Gita. Though it is placed in a historical context, the Gita is a universal and eternal work, and it's a work with a timeless significance. Though it is situated on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, what it teaches, what it conveys as its essential wisdom is valid for all humanity and for all times. So yes, of course, it's as valid in today's times as it was during the time of Sri Krishna and the Pandavas, the Mahabharata times.
Sure. And yes.
No, and I think it's going to remain valid for generations to come.
Sure. And these Mahavakyas are the ones that you have picked.
Yeah, this is the Mahavakyas that we discuss is the ones that I have picked
Right. Yeah.
or cherry picked.
Okay. Yeah.
But yes,
Sure. Let's start with the first one.
oh well, let's start with the first one. So there's a context to everything, and one of the things that I always say about the Gita is it's not a linear work. So it's not that this comes first and then this leads to the next and the next and so on and so forth. The Gita is more like a symphony. It'll strike one note here and then go on to strike a note here and then come back to this note here and strike it with more emphasis and elaborate that and lead to the next note. And so it builds to what I call the essential message of the Gita, the essential teaching of the Gita. So, what are these essential teachings? The first and the most important one, to my mind, is the teaching of immortality. Is when Sri Krishna brings to Arjuna the first fundamental truth about the human condition, that in the spiritual truth of things, you and I are immortal in the spirit. We are not mortal beings destructible and subject to decay and death, but we, in our most essential truth of being, we are indestructible. We are timeless, eternal, immortal. That is the essential truth of the human condition, not death and dying, which is for most people, the essential truth of human existence is death and dying. Finally, everyone has to die. But Sri Krishna says, actually, no one dies. It's the body that dies. It's the body that falls off. In fact, Sri Krishna very famously refers to the body as old and worn-out garments that we discard to take on new one. That's how he refers to the passing of the body. It's a very profound observation of the Gita. That we change our bodies as we change our clothes. When our clothes are old and tattered, worn out, we drop them and we take on new clothes. So dying is like that discarding of the old garment to take on new ones. But the one who is discarding the garment and taking on the new one, the one who's wearing the garments, that is the immortal principle in us. We are not mortal beings bound for death, but we are children of immortality. Amritasya putra, the children of immortality. That's the first essential, fundamental message or teaching of the Gita. And once that is grasped in its full implications, it's a game changer. You know, you can imagine Arjuna on the battlefield facing the most critical battle of his life, the Dharma Yuddha itself, the battle of the ages. And he has to kill or he has to be killed. And obviously, the weight of this whole thing of killing and being killed is on his shoulders. It's weighing him down. And then suddenly, Sri Krishna is telling him, hey, no one dies. You think you're going to slay them or be slain by them? No. The truth of the matter is neither will anyone get slain, nor will anyone slay. Because what you essentially are, what you fundamentally are, is beyond death, beyond killing. The other famous observation of the Gita, that which you are cannot be harmed by any weapon, cannot be destroyed by any weapon, cannot be burnt by fire. No. It is not subject to the elements of nature. So that's a game changer.
And what is this Mahavakya in Sanskrit?
We'll come to this.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. It's
Okay.
Though this is the first revelation.
Where's the context setting?
Yes, this sets the context.
May I ask a question here before we get to the Mahavakya then? The way these people would grow up back then, Arjuna would have gone to a Gurukul, would have had an enlightened teacher, who would have most likely than not taught them these things through Vedanta or through other things. I really wonder, was it just a re-emphasis of what they had forgotten? Because you get so carried away in the day-to-day life that you truly believe as a Kshatriya, you are killing or getting killed with your family, or was he that he was not necessarily aware of it either?
Very interesting question. You're right. I mean, in a Gurukul, which Arjun did go to, the Pandavas did go to. I mean, I'm sure the basic truths of the Vedanta would be taught to them. The basic truths of the Vedas would be taught to them. But you're right. I mean, one would probably have it in one's mind as a theory. And one would get involved in one's day-to-day life and work. And as a Kshatriya, which Arjun was, with the Pandavas were, as a Kshatriya, your whole life would be fighting and preparing for battle, learning how to fight, preparing for battle, fighting battles. So one would probably tend to forget.
Even dealing with the aftermaths, when you see so many families crying, this and that happen.
Yes, it would affect them. And I don't know, all of us would, if this is, again, a human condition, we would all have so much of knowledge and wisdom, but how much of that knowledge and wisdom is actually internalized and lived in one's day-to-day moments? For that, you need to be an established yogi or a rishi who would be actually living the knowledge and the wisdom. So, yes, I think if you would be right in assuming that at that critical moment where the war is inevitable and Arjun would get into this moral dilemma, Sri Krishna would need to bring back to Arjun this most important insight into human nature. So that's the first teaching, the most important teaching. But how does one get to that? And now this is related to your question. I mean, I can mentally understand that I'm actually soul and not mind and body. And as soul, as Atma, I am immortal. But how do I live that? To live that, I have to realize my being as Atma. I have to realize myself as Atma. Yeah?
Yeah.
Which would lead to a very important question. Why am I not living in the Atmic consciousness right now? If that is the truth of my being, that I am Atma, then I should be living in the consciousness of the Atma. I should be living in an Atmic or spiritual consciousness, but I'm not. Why? So that is where the psychology would begin. That why are we not living as the soul, the Atma? It's because I'm identified with that in me which is not soul, which is not spirit, which is not Atma. I'm identified with other components of my being, with other parts of my being, with other movements of my being. So I would be identified with the mind, the intellect, the vital, the pranamaya, the body. So being identified completely with the mind, the intellect, the vital, the body, I would not know myself as Atma at all. So how to get back to that?
And I'd be living in more individuality where...
Yeah, the play of individuality, the play of the ego, in our in a more yogic sense, it is what they call the mano buddhi ahankar complex. The manas, the buddhi, and the ahankar complex. That's what we are, and that's what we are most identified with. And as long as we are identified with the mano buddhi ahankar complex, we cannot know ourselves as the Atma. So what would be the way to this realization of the self as Atma? Which brings us to what I consider to be the first essential insight into the overall vision and teaching of the Gita. The condition of equality, Samata in Sanskrit. And what I consider to be the first great statement or great teaching or the great insight of the Gita, the first Mahavakyas. You wanted it in Sanskrit, so Samatvam Yog Uchayate.
Samatvam Yog.
Samatvam from Samata. Yoga Uchayate is itself known as yoga. Samata itself can be called yoga.
So yoga is equality. Equality is yoga.
Equality. So equality itself is yoga. You can call yoga equality. Equality yoga. Samatvam yoga uchayate. This is the first great opening to the wisdom of the Gita. And what does Samata mean? What does equality mean? So that's where you get multiple layers.
Yeah, I generally just wanted to state this, that yoga is equality is such a simple statement. We can understand just these words as is, but when you, and surely there are layers and layers which take us somewhere. So that's why it's important not to just read Gita in English translation within a second. You'll not truly imbibe anything that's coming from it unless you delve deeper into the layers. And the way to do it is probably meditating on these slokas
and living them.
And living
one by one. Yes. Yeah. So if you really want to understand and appreciate this principle of equality of the Gita, the first Mahavakya, so just visualize the whole thing. You, in your essence, are the Atma, the self, the eternal self. So imagine the background of your being to be the Atmic consciousness, the spiritual consciousness, the Atma. That's the background. You can think of it as a still ocean on which there are waves upon waves that are rising. All the turbulences of an ocean on that. And these turbulences are the movements of your nature, Prakriti. And your nature, your Prakriti, is made up of your mind and your intellect, the mano-buddhi complex. It's made up of your life energies, your emotions, your passions, the movements of prana itself. All these are waves rising and falling on this still, shoreless ocean of being, which is the Atma. So the consciousness that you are is completely identified with these movements of Prakriti, the mind, the intellect, the life force, the emotions, the varied and complex play of emotions, and all that, the ego, the actions and reactions of the ego, everything, all that turbulence of human nature, Prakriti, is what you're identified with and what is carrying you wave to wave. You're being buffeted about by the waves of nature. You've been carried from one place to another constantly by the waves of nature. So in all this movement and all this turbulence, how do you settle into that absolute still calmness of your spiritual being, that absolutely still and calm, shoreless ocean of the Atmic consciousness? How do you settle into it? So just think about that. All these movement, the turbulences, and this absolute calm on which all this is happening. So somehow you have to still this the turbulence. You have to absolutely quieten the turbulence, the movements. You have to equalize the movements. So suddenly Samata makes sense. That Samata, equality, in its simplest sense, means I'm not going to be moved by the waves of nature. The storms and the waves of nature will not move me from here to there. I'm not a cork floating in a choppy sea. I'm not a small rudderless boat on a choppy sea, but I need to be anchored in my deeper being, which is the absolute calm of the Atma. So to do that, I have to come from all this to this.
Sort of a submarine where you're living bit up and down, but then you're calm.
That's very Samata.
That's a submarine.
That is the essential meaning of Samata, which means, in a very practical sense, that I stop reacting to the constant play of dualities in my existence, in my life. And what are these dualities, the constant play of dualities? And think about it. Most of our day-to-day lives, we are living between the polarities of what we like and what we do not like. Priya, apriya, that which is pleasant to us and that which is unpleasant to us. And everything in our life can be broken down into terms of simply that which is priya, or which we like, which is pleasant for us, which attracts us, and that which is apriya, which we do not like, which we want to avoid. Isn't that so?
True.
Most of our existence is just a tug of war, pull and push between these two polarities. And so we call, in Sanskrit, we use the term raga dvesha. The raga dvesha is the primary duality of our beings. Raga is, in a way, affection, and that which attracts us to itself, that which we like, that which we find good and pleasant and happy. And dvesha is that which we do not like, you want to avoid. So our whole existence is a conflict and a play between raga and dvesha. And as long as that is so, we'll always be reacting. We'll always be reacting to this, positive or negative reactions. And out of this arises all the other dualities. Shubha, ashubha, that which is, I don't know how one translates shubha into English, that which is auspicious and that which is not auspicious. Kalyan, akalyan, that, the fortunate and the unfortunate. Fortune, misfortune, sukha, dukkha. no happiness and suffering, pain. So as long as we are tossed between these two, like a shuttlecock, ping pong, we don't get to realize ourselves as the Atma. So the first fundamental condition of realizing oneself as Atma is to go permanently and irreversibly, beyond the play of dualities. That's the first condition of samatha. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Yoga is that condition which takes us beyond the pull and push of dualities. Now think about it. This constant pull and push of dualities is there in the mind. Your mental preferences, your mental desires and your mental anxieties and fears. What you consider mentally to be of value and not to be of value. The good and the bad, the mental definitions of good and the bad. The mental categories of the fortunate and the unfortunate, the noble and the not so noble, the good and the not so good, and the ugly, all that. It's in the mind. And the same thing comes down to our vital emotional being, our emotional reactions. That I like that and I do not like that. I want that and I do not want that. I love this and I hate that. All that. And then it also comes down to the body, what the body finds comfortable and uncomfortable, pleasant and unpleasant, painful and pleasurable. So you see, the display of duality is there in all the parts of our being, the mind, the vital being, the body itself, the nervous body, the physical body. So when we talk of samatha as a yogic discipline, as a yoga, we are talking about samatha in the mind, samatha in the vital emotional being, samatha in the nervous being, samatha in the physical body, in the physical being. So it's quite integral, which is why it is the first condition of the yoga of the Gita. You can't get into the real experience of the Gita's what we call the yoga of the Gita, the actual realization and experience of the yoga of the Gita, without mastering samatha.
And
And you can extend it. We can think of samatha in terms of human relationships, in interpersonal relationships, social relationships, politics. Everywhere you see this play of dualities, which will be, or which must be, replaced by a growing sense of equality and equanimity. All things are equal, neither good nor bad.
This is very much against our day-to-day modern living or general of all humanity, right? We have certain preferences, certain desires, certain dislikes, certain, I like to spend time with you and I do not like to spend time with someone else, so I'll act accordingly.
Yes.
Of sorts, right? I like one politics versus the other. I like one person over the other. I like something to eat.
Top to bottom, we are full of preferences.
How to practically start living this way where we are not bothered by, or we're not labeling everything as a positive or a negative in some sense.
So, first is to stop labeling, obviously.
Stop the label. Okay. So I like chocolate. I should not even say I like chocolate.
Yes, so chocolate is chocolate.
Yeah.
But it involves a certain discipline that just to eat the chocolate, to savor the taste of chocolate without getting attached to it. In a very simplistic sense, that would be the beginning of the whole discipline. Here, of course, you're giving an example of chocolate. I would say extend it to all things that you eat and drink. that this is the kind of food I want and this is the kind of food I don't want, this is good food, this is not good food, to get out of all these categorizations and to take all food that comes to us as an offering from the universe, from the divine.
To the divine.
To the divine, yes. It comes from the divine, it returns to the divine. So whatever we take within ourselves as food is, to use the Sanskrit, is prasada. Prasadam is offering to the divine. So we receive from the divine and we offer back to the divine. So there's no space or scope of personal preferences here. So that in fact is part of the sadhana of samatha. And then you can extend it to all experiences of life. That all experiences are given to us by the divine through the cosmic workings. You know, the cosmos, the universe we live in is a manifestation of the divine's will. The divine manifests as cosmos. So whatever is happening to us is because of the cosmic workings of the divine will. So nothing is good or bad. Nothing is fortunate or unfortunate. Nothing is nothing is right or wrong and something to be accepted, something to be rejected. Nothing of that kind. This comes from the divine. Let it go in and let me absorb it and let it pass back into the divine. So no personal reaction, no personal attachment, no movement of raga or dvesha.
Accept everything equally.
We accept everything equally and leave it to the divine's will.
Yeah. And from whatever I've read about Gita, this maybe comes later, that there is no I, then there's not a question of I like, I don't like.
Yes, and
which will come later.
this takes us deeper.
This takes us deeper.
For instance, after this, you will have Sri Krishna talk about the play of the three gunas of nature.
Correct.
The sattva gun, the rajo gun, and the tamo gun. And Sri Krishna makes this other very profound observation that there is no doer, actually. You're not doing anything.
There's no free will.
Everything is being done through you. So this whole question of I am the doer, karta bhav, we call it in Sanskrit. And I am the doer, I'm getting things done, or I'm not getting things done, and all this personal baggage we carry. Sri Krishna is telling us this is all futile because there's no doer. So what is doing through us? The three gunas of nature. It's a bit difficult to understand the three gunas. We probably need a separate session for that. But
I think we covered this in one of our sessions. We talked about wisdom, free will. It's happening through us through the combination of these three gunas.
So this is an essential teaching of the Gita. So the moment we learn to see all action within ourselves and within everyone else, we begin to see all action as an interplay of the three gunas. The sense that I am the doer and he's the doer, she's the doer, you're the doer begins to fade from our consciousness. And this whole perception of the doer and belief in the doer and actions and reactions arising from this belief in the doer is replaced by a knowledge and a constant seeing that it is a play of the gunas of Prakriti. It's a play of Prakriti. And of course, the Gita takes us beyond even that. That our first perception and realization is it's a play of nature, the three gunas of nature. But our deeper perception and understanding and realization is that even behind nature and holding nature, upholding and supporting nature is the divine consciousness. That all human actions are being moved by the three gunas of nature, but nature herself, Prakriti itself, is being moved by the divine consciousness. So you can go as deep as you can or you want to.
Yeah. I was just thinking through this and some analogies that were coming to me to put this even in more in perspective. That one is, of course, as you started with, it's like a boat in the choppy water. you are being thrown around from here to there and it hurts and sometimes you break and all that. But if you start living inwards, you will go a little bit inside and a bit outside. You'll find a balance between inner and external life. And that's a good example of a submarine where you're more inside and then you're stabler and you're just, you're not bothered by too much of the outside impact. And the other example I was just thinking was of the screen in a cinema. So, you are the screen on which the movie is playing.
Right.
If you associate yourself or attach yourself with the characters coming in, going out, they will die. Movie will end in 2 hours.
Yes.
Then there'll be another movie, the same or another one in one way or another, right? And then there are other screens playing around in a multiplex cinema. That's like, I was just connecting the dots with some analogies.
No, it's correct. And the screen is analogous to the Atmic consciousness.
Exactly.
On which Prakriti is being projected.
Yes, and you have the visual, the sound as the gunas playing and putting a movie together. And then it evolves and grows. And I think when, as we've discussed in multiple other discussions so there's no free will, how the gunas work through us, Prakriti works through us with these gunas. And if we were not to label anything, if we have to stop A, thinking I, and B, stop labeling, or these two maybe go hand in hand to a large extent, we don't have the burden of experience. We're just flowing and no filters.
Yes.
Life becomes much simpler. And when we understand it mentally, then imbibe it and live it and bring it to all parts of our being, we are able to hopefully eventually live it fully. And that is the sadhana again.
And the moment you begin to see everything as a play of Prakriti, then you begin to observe this play in yourself and in everyone else. And life in the world that you live more and more becomes like a theater.
Yeah.
And you become more of a witness than somebody involved in this play and being knocked around by the forces in the play. So instead of being an actor on stage, you become a witness. What in Sanskrit we would call a Sakshi.
Yeah.
So this establishment of what in a yogic language we call Sakshi Bhava, the witness attitude, the witness consciousness. So the establishment of oneself as the witness consciousness, as the one witnessing the play of nature, is again an essential condition of the yoga of the Gita. Without establishing ourselves as the witness, we cannot really deepen into the Atmic consciousness, into the spiritual consciousness. So it's a very important, indispensable transit from the outer surface involved play, which is our personality, to the witness, which is aware of everything but is not involved in everything, in anything. It's aware of everything but not involved in anything. So that itself is a mastery.
And still letting things be done through.
Everything is being done through Prakriti. But you, the consciousness, again to use yogic language from the Gita, the Purusha, which is the pure consciousness behind the play of Prakriti. The play of Prakriti and Purusha as the consciousness behind the play of Prakriti. So you're aware of the whole play, all the movements and the forces of Prakriti. But you're not attached to anything. You're not involved with anything. You're letting everything happen, but you're not attached to any outcome here. You're a witness. So you let everything happen. Now, what happens because of the play of Prakriti, the outcome of that play, is not your concern anymore. You let everything happen, and you know that ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the divine's will. It's the divine who plays through Prakriti. So that actually brings you, which probably we will take it up in the next session, will brings you to the next Mahavakya of the Gita. So your concern is with what you are here to do. your karma. Your concern is not with the outcome of your karma. That you leave to Krishna. That's the next profound revelation of the Gita.
So I think somehow taking and just connecting this in my head in a movie analogy. So there's a movie going on. Number one, it's a movie. Don't take it too seriously. It's a movie. Second, what's happening is what director decides to happen. The outcome is what audience decides to happen. So anybody playing in the play, in the movie, in the theater is just a puppet. Let it happen.
Yes.
Let it happen. You can witness it. Don't take yourself as puppet too seriously. You don't control anything anyways.
And maybe not just a puppet, but a very conscious actor
Yeah. Yeah.
who knows what is going on and doesn't get involved with what he's doing as an actor. So Hamlet will play his role as Hamlet and will not get attached to the outcome
Correct.
of Hamlet's life and his actions.
Correct. Yeah, that's a great analogy. But again, yoga's equality is a great way to start, and yes, the first Mahavakyas. So thanks for breaking it down for us, Partho.
Thank you, Partho.
Dhanyavad.